Hi Flosstube, it's Helen D. I'm back with another tutorial. Today we're making bats. This bat here is from the Val's Stuff Bat Kit Crazy. I picked this up when I was on vacation over the summer and it was sold as a kit to make this bat with the stitched perforated paper wings. I chose the saying, just batty. I put him together, fell absolutely in love with him because he's just so adorable in 3D and so cute that I wanted to make all the bats. So I played around and I figured out a way to make the bats with a fabric wing so that for this Halloween I would have my stitched bat and then he'd have some fabric buddy bats, and I hung them up with a garland. So today I'm going to show you how to make the fabric bat. When I showed this bat on my Flosstube, every time I showed this kit I would get questions. Is this available? I can't find this. Where can I get this? So I did a little research, and this kit was put out a few years ago and it was limited edition, and it wasn't available. So I reached out to Val and I asked her, I showed her what I had done with my fabric bat, and I said, and I'd like to do a tutorial, but it's your chart. I don't want to do something without your permission. Is this still available? And she said it's not still available. It was limited edition. She said it's one of her most popular charts. Let me see what I can do about supplies. So she took a couple days, made a few calls. The bats are coming back, you guys. Val is going to re-release the Bat Kit Crazy for a limited time, 3 months only. She's doing September, October, and November. So she is putting together the kit, which is what you use to make this one. It comes with perforated paper, the chart for all 3 different sayings, the buttons for the eyes and the teeth, the ball. She's doing purple, green, and black are the 3 colors. The wool. She's using wool felt. She's made a couple of changes from her original kit. So if you've had one of the original kits, she's changing to a wool felt in the back because it's a little firmer and a little more stable. And then the eyeballs, the white pump, they're wool balls. These are a full circle. She's going to use a half circle. They're going to be cut in half because when Val, in her instructions, she calls for you gluing the face. And the half circles are easier to glue. You know, a flat to a round instead of a round to a round. I'm going to show you how to do it sewing them because I have cats and I was afraid that if this got down, they would rip that eyeball right off and I'd never see it again. So I ended up sewing mine on, so it really didn't matter if I had a half ball or a whole ball, it was fine. So, Bat Kit Crazy coming back. Val only does wholesale orders, so if you're interested in getting a kit, they will retail for $20. Contact your local needlework shop or your favorite online shop and have them get in touch with Val because she only sells directly to shops. So September, October, November are when these will be available. So if you get the kit, like I said, it has all 3 of the sayings. So you could then buy extra supplies and make all of them. Or you could make a bunch of fabric ones to go with. You'll have a whole cauldron of bats. So let me show you how to put them together, and then if you buy the kit, the making of the face is the same. So this tutorial will work basically for either. The difference is on these. When you've stitched it on the perforated paper, you then cut it out, and you probably can't even see it. You do like a little line of back stitch to attach it to the wing, and that's how and then you cut around it. That's how you kind of make the perforated paper wing. So for mine, what I did to start is I made a template. I went by this shape and then I tweaked it just a smidge to make it work. So I have this template on my website as a PDF that you can print right out. It has a larger wing, which is what you use for your felt, a smaller, which is your fabric, and then a little triangle for the ear, just cut a triangle. You don't really need to go by that. So let's go over supplies to start. I used regular old craft cat-haired felt. That's what I had in black. It is a little on the stiffer side, which is nice. So regular craft felt, just some cotton fabric, Reynolds freezer paper. I like to use this for when I'm tracing and cutting out fabric or wool because it stays on there, so it gives you a nice tight cut. So Reynolds freezer paper. If in this video I call it wax paper, because I tend to do that, that is not what I mean. Freezer paper. And then Heat Bond. Mine is Heat Bond Ultra. If you're lucky, your cat will chew the bag for you. This is how I'm going to attach the fabric. The other things I used, the felt balls. The bat itself is made with a 3 centimeter felt ball. The eyes are a 1 centimeter felt ball. For comparison, I also, when I ordered mine, I got some to make a garland. These are a 2.5. So there's quite a difference between the 2.5 and the 3. There are several stores on Etsy where you can buy felt balls. You can get them on Amazon in a multi-pack. I like to buy mine from Cutest Little Garlands on Etsy. I've used her before. Her shipping is great. They come in a bunch of colors. Her pricing is great. I could get both sizes at the same time. Actually, I got all 3 sizes because I made the garland. So that's who I got mine from. I will link these below as well. The buttons. These teeny tiny little buttons. I ordered mine. Honestly, these triangle buttons were the hardest thing I had to find. So the triangle buttons are a 6 millimeter triangle button. I got mine from Country Girl Buttons on Etsy. Apparently they're discontinued. I did reach out to her. She does still have quite a few left. So Country Girl Buttons is where I found mine. I also found on Amazon like a multi-pack, but it was multicolored, and then you might get 6 whites and, 28 pinks, so you don't really know. The black buttons I just had, but it's in such a tiny bag. Oh, here it is. I also got these at Country Girl Buttons. They are a 4 millimeter little teeny tiny black button. So those I got from Country Girl Buttons. These are much larger, but would still work just fine. These I got at Joann's. So this is favorite findings. So if you're having a hard time finding the small ones, or you just want to use some larger ones, that is an option. If you can't find the teeth buttons, I would cut out 2 teeny tiny scraps of white felt and just glue them on or tack them on. You could hand stitch some teeth on. So there are options if you can't find the buttons. I'm also using one of my doll needles. I have the 5-inch doll needles and then a regular needle because my doll needle is too thick to go through the buttons. So that's a little bit of a back and forth with switching needles, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. That's supplies. So let's get started. So the first thing that I did was I cut out my templates. I like to put mine on either manila file folders or a heavier cardstock if I'm going to use them multiple times. I cut out a piece of the freezer paper just a little bit bigger than my larger template. I ironed the freezer paper onto my felt. And I just used like a regular cotton heat. Mine had steam, just a quick press. Make sure that you put the waxy side down so it's on your felt, and then this non-waxy side is what you put your iron on. And then I just cut it out, and I already started this one obviously. So I found, usually I use my tiny scissors on stuff like this. It was hard to get in these corners, these curves. So instead I found that actually my bigger scissors I was able to just kind of cut up in there and then kind of hold the scissor and rotate my fabric to get those tight curves. So that's how I kind of cut that out. And then to show you when you're done, the freezer paper, it peels right off. See how nice and tight that is? Like if you pinned it, there's no way that all your corners would stay down while you're trying to cut. But with the freezer paper, now I just peel it off. Comes right off, doesn't leave any residue behind, and it's a nice cut. And you can actually reuse that a few more times until it kind of loses its stick. So I have my back wings. You can even pull it off your scrap. And then I would save this scrap because you can use it for cutting out the ears when we get there. Then I took my heat bond. This is just a scrap from my roll. And I laid out my template. And for the heat bond, I cut a piece just a little bit bigger because unlike the freezer paper, which you can just peel off any excess, the heat bond you can't. Once it's on there, it's on there. And I didn't want to waste a ton of fabric, so I kind of cut it tight to my template and ironed it on the back side of my fabric. So you can see it's just a little bit bigger. Now the heat bond has, and I know you won't really be able to see it, it has like a webbed side, like you can feel it. This side is the sticky side, and then there's a paper backing on the other side. So you put the sticky webbed side down and iron on with the smooth side. So now I'm going to cut that out. So for this, just to get it off my big piece of paper here, my big piece of fabric, I'm going to cut around that and trace on my wings. I was so glad when Val said that she was going to re-release those kids, because I know a lot of people were looking for them. They're so cute. That's what sold me when we were on vacation. We were at Country Sampler in West Virginia, and they had the model, and I just couldn't stop looking at how cute it was. All right, so now I'm just going to cut this out. And I used my iron on the same setting. The heat bond does have ironing directions right on the package. Hopefully not the section that your cat chewed. Emmy is a plastic eater, so we have to really watch her. Especially the shower curtain at like 5 a.m. I don't know what makes it extra tasty at 5 a.m., but that's when she always seems to want to go for it. So we'll get these cut out. Okay. Now these scraps I do not need to keep. So now we have fabric wings and our felt back. So the wings, the fabric, now you go in and you can just kind of use your finger to separate this. And it's like peeling the back off a sticker. It will peel off, and now there's more of the fusibleness on this side. So now you just line up your wings, line up your insides, kind of get it how you want, take it over to your iron and iron that on there, and it will stick right on. Through the magic of television, here's one that's all done. So again, I just ironed it on, and now it is one piece. Because it has the heat bond in it, it's a little, like it's still flexible, but it's stiff enough that it will stand up. So now my wings are all done. I'm going to set them aside and work on my bat. For thread, when I made the first one, I used 2 strands of DMC, and that worked great. Sometimes 2 strands of thread can get a little tricky to work with, and I thought, well, why am I using this when I have Sulky? So I'm going to be using my Sulky thread, which is the same thickness as the 2 strands, but it's twisted together, so it's a little easier to work with. If you don't have it, use 2 strands of DMC or 2 strands of a sewing thread. But because I do have it, that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to take a decently long piece, because this is what we'll use for attaching almost everything. If you end up getting too short, just cut a new one. Just tie it off and cut a new one. I'm just going to put like 3 knots in the bottom. And then I'm going to start with my long needle. The reason we need the long needle, and if you had a longer regular sewing needle, you could use that, but I don't. We need to attach the pom-poms to this, and that's pretty thick, and I don't have a needle thick enough to go through that. So I'm going to take just 2 regular pins, poke my eyeball, and poke my white ones. I'm using green because this one's from my sister and that's her favorite color. You can use whatever color you like, which is the good thing about the bats. So I just poked them in. You know, when you're kind of looking at it, they're up a little. It's not quite in the center. They're like, I don't know, 2/3 of the way up. And you'll angle this and stuff as you go, so they're held on in there. Then I'm going to take this long needle, and from the back, not right in the center of the back, but probably like equal with the eyeballs, I'm going to go right through this ball and try and come out on either one right where that pin is to attach my black button. So these balls are very forgiving. I'm just going to poke my way gently because I don't want to poke myself in the finger, and I'm kind of right by that pin. Perfect. Now that I'm in there enough, I'm going to move that pin. I'm still going to leave it in. I just want it out of my way. So I move to the pin. I'm going to pull this all the way through. That knot will hold on the back. And because my needle is too thick for my button, I'm going to switch to my small needle. Take one of the tiny black buttons from the back of the button. I'll go up 1 hole. And then just pull my thread back down the other hole. Okay, so my button is on there. It's not where I need it yet, but it's on there. Then I have to switch my needle to go back down through the eye. So I have my black button. Then you can kind of push it down where you want it or down to the end of the thread. I'm going to use my needle and go back down a little over, trying to get it roughly in the same spot in the back. Pull it through, kind of slowly so it doesn't knot. And as I get toward the end, I'll just make sure it's not twisted. And there's one little eyeball. Okay, then I'm going to come right kind of back through the same area in the back and do the other eyeball. Sometimes it takes me, like, look, I'm way down here. Sometimes it takes me a few pokes to get it where I want it. Sometimes, not very often. It's like Robin Hood. And as I'm poking it through, look like this. Well, push that pin right out. That's how accurate I was. That doesn't happen often. So again, I'm going to pull this all the way up, switch to my small, and do the same thing with the other button. Come up from the back, Go down the front. Switch my needle. Pull this button down so it's on my white ball. And then go through and sew it on. Honestly, one of the things I like about these bats, everyone looks adorably different. If your eyes aren't centered, it doesn't matter. It's going to be so cute. I have some where they're looking up. They're very aloof. Each one has their own little personality. So now that those are in, I can take my pins out. And there's his eyes. Okay. So next we're going to do the ears. So for the ears, I'm just going to stick this in here and set it aside. We're going to take those little scraps and somewhere here I have my little cutout of my ear. But like I told you, it's not that important. Good thing, because I can't find it. So I'm going to take these little scraps and I'm just going to cut out a triangle. This is one of the wings, so it already has kind of a nice point. So I might start with just cutting that down, and obviously it's kind of too wide on the bottom. But then if I trim it up a little, it will be fine. I would say the main importance on your ears is once you have one, use that one to cut the next one, so that at least they don't have to be the same as the template, but they're the same as each other. So there's 2 ears. So for the ears, I need another, just a smaller piece of thread. I'll tie a couple knots in the bottom. We're going to sew them together gently on the bottom just to hold them and give them a little bit of a curl. And I'm going to use my small needle for this. So thread this needle. So here's one of my ears, and I kind of have like a long side and then that point. I'm going to take the long side and fold it in half. And then just put a few stitches in the bottom. Nothing major, just kind of come up, come down. Do that a couple times. Again, just to kind of hold it together. And then I'm just going to make a knot. I'm actually just going to go around the bottom. This is going to get sewn on. Cut it off and cut that extra little bit off. So that just kind of makes a smaller triangle sewn on just one end, and then we kind of will push it, and it kind of gives it that nice little ear pucker. So we'll do the same thing for this next one. Couple more knots. I've watched people do quilter's knots. I've tried them. I've gone back to doing it this way. So again, the long side, fold it in half, and just kind of tack this together a little bit. And then we'll be ready to sew them on. Now from here, I should be done with this long needle. I really needed it to get through the width of the ball plus the eyeballs. So I'm going to put my smaller needle on just because it's a little easier to maneuver. So the ears are going to go right snugged up by these eyeballs. I'm going to do them one at a time. So the sewed part that we did is on the bottom. Like I said, you just kind of push the back and pucker it up a little bit and tuck it right in behind that eye. And then you might want to hold it in place with one of your pins. So it's kind of tucked in there. He looks like he has a mohawk right behind an eye. Then I'm going to take my needle and my thread from the back, bring it up through, kind of in that same spot, to up here by the ear. Now because I'm using a green pom-pom and a black ear, I don't really want my black stitches to show, so I have to be a little bit careful. I just pushed the pin in so it would hold it better. Careful you don't poke yourself in the bottom. So I'm going to angle that up there, and I ended up coming up a little bit from the back, which is fine. I'll start there. So I'm going to pull this through. I'm just going to take a couple of little tacking stitches through the black and then just up into the green. I don't have to go all the way back to the middle. I can just kind of come up right on the side and pull that through. And then I'm just going to do that a couple times to really hold that ear in place. It can be a little tricky maneuvering around the eyes. So there's that. I'm going to come over, this time I'm going to go right through the black into the green. Just tack it on. If you're doing a black ear on a black bat, those stitches don't show at all, so you don't need to worry about it. I'm a little over here, so I have to kind of smush his ear down a little. Take that last. So I just kind of put, I don't know, 4. Just to tack it on. Then I can take that pin out. So this ear, it's a little off. Again, they're adorable no matter what you do. And if he has one ear over a little more, that's fine. Or when I do this second ear, I'll just butt it up right against that one and both of his ears will be kind of in the middle. So now I'm going to push this one in place, pin it down. Then figure out where I am. So I'm over on the back side. I'm going to go right underneath and through to the other side, just to get my needle in the right spot, right through the ball. And then take a couple of tacking stitches on this side. So there's one on the end, here's one right behind the eye. I'm trying not to get poked by that pin. I'm going to kind of go through to the back. And then I'll do one right on the back. This pin I can take out now. Okay, and the ears. The ears are on. They're not exactly the same, they're not exactly centered, equally adorable. So now I'm going to need this needle, but I still need this black thread. So I'm going to kind of tuck it between his eyes and pull it to the side. Just between the eyes, we'll hold it over there. I kind of parked it. I'm parking that thread. Now I'm going to do his mouth and his fangs. For his mouth, I'm going to use a red so that it will show up. So I'm going to take my red floss. I don't need a super long piece for this. I bet I cut a foot. Put a couple knots in it, and I'm going to thread that up on my small needle. The mouth is freehand. Again, if it's a little off, it just makes it more adorable. Okay. So, when I'm putting the mouth on, this is when I need to kind of look, what angle do I want him? I think what I found with mine is if I try and keep where I put the dots in the back even, that's when they start to look a little aloof. So I'm going to try and angle him down a little bit so that he's more looking at me. And I'm going to poke my needle in the back and try and come up. I'm right-handed, I read left to right, so I'm going to come up here on the left. So I'm going to kind of go, I'm going to end up going above where I put these. Like this will get covered when we put the wings on. So I'm going to try and angle this. And again, sometimes it takes a few pokes, like this one's with my short needle. Sometimes you almost lose the needle, but you can pull it out with the thread if you need to re-angle. So I want him over just a little more. That will work. So he's coming out right here, so I'm going to kind of push it through and then give it a pull. Instead of going back and forth with this needle, short needle, trying to line them up, what I've been doing is I turn it, and then I'm going to, almost like a back stitch it right on from the front. So the way I do that is I'm going to go up like 1/8 of an inch. I tend to go like when you're drawing a smile, you know how you kind of go down and then across and up? I'm going to go down a stitch, about 1/8 of an inch. Put my needle in. Then I'm just going to angle my needle so that I'll have my 1/8 of an inch, and then I kind of curved to go up, just right in the ball. So there's number one. Then I'll take this, go back to where this stitch ends, go right in, then come back out just like a back stitch where your last one was. So now I'm going to come back in here and then go back out, and that will give me my next stitch. And I'm just going to keep doing that. So this one will be the one where I go in and then out. And then I'll go back a stitch and out where I just was, until I kind of get his little face on there. If you put it on the first time and you're like, I don't like that, you can easily just gently pull them out. Like honestly, I think this one is a little too low. I think I should be up a little. So let's fix it. So I can take my blunt end of my needle and just gently tug these out and re-angle. I think the aloofness look comes from leaving too much space between the eyes and the mouth. So I'm going to try and be a little narrower when I do this. And we'll see if it makes a difference. My stitches there weren't exactly the same, but my teeth will hide it. So there's my mouth, and that's not like perfectly straight there, but once I get my little teeth, I can kind of put them down in the dips, and they'll hide some of my dippy spots. So to end this, I am going to poke it through to the back. Then tie it off. So to tie it off back here, I just kind of dip into the felt a little, pull it through, and then go through and make a knot. And I don't worry about then poking it through to hide, because all of this is going to get covered up. So there's my little crooked smile. He's got a little crooked smile. So now for his teeth. For the teeth, I'm going to use white. And I'll also use that small needle again. Actually, I think I'm done with the needle altogether. Couple knots on the end. Like I said, Val has you glue. You could glue. That would be just fine. I just thought that the sewing made it a little more cat-proof. I don't want to go through all this work and then find bat eyeballs all over my house. So I'll try and get this black out of my way, go through the back, and I'm going to try and come up right in that. It's going to take a couple times. A little below that red line, and I'm trying to get it right in that spot where I kind of was not the straightest. Right there. So I'm coming up right in his smile, basically. Pull it through. And then take one of my little teeth, and just like we did with the eyes, you're going to find the point where they line up so that you've got a hole on the top and then a hole on the point. Come in from the back, then go down and get that button on there. Push it down to get it in place. He's all twisty. Kind of get it angled where you want it. Pull it straighter a little bit. I kind of hold it on with my thumb, take the other one, my other hand, and go back to the back here and pull it through. And then kind of twist it around where you want it, give it a pull, and it's on there. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side. Again, I had one spot where I was a little crooked. Almost. Right there's fine. Pull it through, find my second one, get it on my thread, and pull it down where I want it. So tuck that one up here, hold it in place with my thumb, and go back through to the other side. Adjust it, and there's his little face. So I'm going to end this just like I did the red. I'm just going to kind of go under a little bit, pull it through, and make a knot. And cut that off. So there he is. There's his little head. Now we just need to attach the wings. So I'm going to unhook this from his eye. Put my small needle on this one. And we're kind of up here in the ears, which is a good place to start. So I'm going to now take my wings. Again, I just kind of stuck this in there so it'd be out of my way. Take my wings and figure out what angle works best for my head, because we're going to end up sewing him right on. If I saw him, this is when he looks aloof. So if I angle him down a little, he might be more looking at us. So I'm going to get those on there and just stick a pin in them to hold him in place. So there is like a little V here, and then on the bottom this V kind of wraps around, which pops the ears out. So I'm going to start up here by this V. I'm up here by the ears. I'm going to go right in my ball and out, kind of try to be somewhere along that V, and pull it through. And that just gets my thread over there without showing. Then, just like I did with the ears, I'm just going to take a few tacking stitches. So I'll kind of go in the black and out the green and over my pin. And just do that a few times to hold it in place. You'll find if you hit the heat bond fabric, it's a little harder to get your needle through. Okay, so I did a few of those. I don't need that pin anymore because it's on there. So now on my back, I'm going to go through the ball here and come out on the bottom. So I'm just going through and coming out on the bottom to kind of, again, bury that thread so that you won't see it. And I came out somewhat on the bottom, close enough. Pull it through. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom where I take this curl and kind of tack it on a little bit. Now you attach the perforated paper bats from the kit the same way, except it's a little less flexible because of the perforated paper. But you still do the same thing where you just sew around that bottom bit and you kind of sew right where it connects up in the V. So we sewed around the bottom bit and he's done. So to end this, I'll just take one of those tacking stitches, go through it to make a knot, and I'll probably do that twice because this one is the very end and I don't want to take any chances. And then I'm just going to pull that off and give it a snip. And there he is. So there's your little bat. If you want to hang these as ornaments, the way I found that was the best, it's not in here, I would take, and I'll show you with the Sulky, but I would use black embroidery floss or whatever color you want, all 6 strands, and cut like a good size loop. 12 inches, 8-12 inches. Don't knot it. Put it on your big needle. The way I found that they hang the best is if you go right from the top, right behind their ears, and take that big needle all the way through the bottom. Poke it right out the bottom. Pull it through. Then turn it and go right back up. And if you make your loop this way, they tend to hang nicely. So pull it right through. That will give you both of your ends on the top, and then they hang nice and straight. Because their eyes, they're a little top heavy, but that's how I found that they hang the best. So how I displayed mine, when I ordered my 3 centimeter, I also ordered some 2.5s, and I made a garland. So then I have my garland. I tried to put the bats on the garland. They weigh too much, so they were not hanging right. So I hung the garland, and then I hung my bats. Actually, I have like an old window frame. I ended up putting going straight down through, but instead of coming back up, I left it so I have a long string on both sides, and I tied it right to that window frame. So that's how I did mine. So I hope that you're now obsessed with these cute little bats because they're so adorable. Let your shop know if you'd like to get the kits. Like I said, they're limited. She said September. She's hoping to start shipping mid-September, and they'll be available through November or when she runs out of supplies. So get the kit. He's like my center bat. He's the alpha bat. And then I have his little minion bats. Make yourself a cauldron of bats. I will also link Val's Facebook page down below to see what else she has coming out for Halloween. And there you are. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys next time.